All right, here we go. So I'm sure you all are familiar with an AMA style conversation. This has been a fantastic audience, so you're very chatty. So get out your questions, get out your app. We're also gonna have, I believe we'll have a microphone if anyone, wants to actually stand up and talk in person. So the three of you, I'm gonna start with an easy one. Let's say I'm a founder. Let's say I want your money. It's 2025. What do I have to do, and how is AI changing that? Max, you go first.
I don't think AI has changed that at all. I think we're kind of still looking for the same type of people, like this, I would say, rare combination of kind of genius and courage. So probably like 2 standard deviations from normal IQ is like a hygiene factor. We love kind of natural salesmanship, charisma. We want you to be able to be kind of both detail-oriented, communicate a good vision. And I think in the end, we want you to be like deeply invested into the problem that you're solving, like obsessed about it, passionate about it, like infectious energy, just to show that, you're gonna be able to get people to join kind of get on the bus before there even is a bus.
How often do you find that?
3 to 4 times a year.
Okay.
And we do about 12 investments a year, so about 1 a month. So, and we're 4 partners. So.
And so out of how many people pitch to you?
I would say we touch about 1,000 companies.
Okay.
And we spend time with about 150 or so.
Yeah. Is that the same for about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably at about 1/10% from first touch point to investment.
Yeah.
So about 1 in 1,000 roughly. But I also meet with a lot of early stage startups, so I might be a little weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, in terms of what resonates with me, and our team at Thayer is interesting because we all come from slightly different backgrounds. And so, for me, the things that I look for are, founder market fit. I want to know that this person is obsessed with the problem, but not necessarily the solution, right? Because you might have an idea of a particular way to approach this market problem, but once you get into it, you find, it's not quite right. And they need to be willing to kind of shift gears a little bit to find the right solution. So that's something that I think is really important. And then, for me, I like the technical founders because my background is in more go-to-market strategy. And so I can be a helpful partner to the more technical or product-oriented founders that need help with that next component. So that's something that I kind of gravitate toward.
How often do you guys know right away, like from the first meeting, like this is the one?
I think after the first meeting, there's often times I'm really excited to engage. I don't know if I would ever say that, like, I'm going to cut a check after the first meeting, but after 5 minutes, I probably know if I'm going to want to engage with this founder further. Now, obviously, I spend the next 25 minutes trying to validate that feeling, but pretty quickly, I want to know if I want to engage further or not.
I think it's the reverse for me. I kind of know more quickly if it's not a fit for me than like, oh, this is the most brilliant thing I've ever seen. So
is it the person or the problem that
so
you are
I like
really...
to talk about the fishman in the pond, and this I'm stealing from Benchmark. This is not original Gilad. But Benchmark talks about early stage investing. It's very simple. There's a fisherman in a pond. The first question is it a pond you want to be fishing in? Is it big enough, rich enough, interesting enough, blah, 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 blah. And the second question is this the fisherman I think can win in this pond? Do they understand it? Can they navigate the pond, et cetera? So from that perspective, I think nothing has changed from that.
Yeah. What about you, Max?
I do think, I mean, I think you know very quickly. And that's because this is such a rare combination of, I mean, we're really talking about like 1 in a few 100,000 people that I think kind of cleared the bar, which is pretty depressing. But you have to also realize that what we're looking to do is not just build a regular good business. Like I think a lot of people can build regular good business. We are looking for high growth companies that can be like multiple billion-dollar outcomes for us. So that's pretty rare. Our average holding period, and that includes the failed companies, is 8.5 years, which is slightly longer than the average American marriage. So you really have to like after that first meeting, you really want to make sure that you want to work with that person, because there's also good founders, and there's some of them are very difficult, and you might not want to do that because.
And the same thing applies to the founder. When you meet with an investor, you got to ask, do you want to work with this person for the next 7 or 8 years? And it has to be both directions for it to actually work.
And I would add one more thing. We meet so many companies, so we're like a mortgage broker or like a banker that doesn't give out the mortgage, right? Which is very frustrating. So 99% of our customers won't work with us, so we want to make sure that they actually also have a good experience. Like, it's been a good pitch, even though they didn't give me money. He's not a complete idiot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How many people have turned you down, Gilad? You say that they want to have to work with you. Has anyone ever said, no, I don't want your money?
I'm pretty lucky that it hasn't. I'm also a smaller check than these guys, so
All
I
right.
can usually sneak in
Fair
a little
enough.
bit easier.
Yeah.
But that's part of our job.
Yeah.
Part of our job is to identify the deal and then to get invited into the good deals, and the good deals often are competitive.
Yeah. Has anyone ever turned down your money? Either one of you?
Never Cara, or there'd be idiots who turned down Cara's money.
All right, so let us now get to the audience questions. Okay, this is a great one. We've heard about AI all day. What about the data? What type of new proprietary data do investors think would be interesting for startups to gather and sell?
Sure, happy to. I mean, so like we just spent probably more than a decade hearing about how data is the new oil and so on. And I honestly, like, if that were the case, we'd have these massive data marketplaces where people would be buying and selling and trading data. And that doesn't really happen much beyond ad tech. And so I just don't think, I don't think the data is as valuable by itself. It's what you do with it. I do think, one of the things that really bugs me about AI, I'm just going to say it now, even though it's like marginally related, is like, when you are not technical enough, you always argue in analogy. You have these metaphors and you're kind of thinking about AI the way you think about like, oh, maybe it's like kind of a person or maybe like as smart as a person. It's like you have to get to first principles. And everyone who's in this room is smart enough to get there. You have to just spend the time engaging with the technology, not as a user, but in understanding how it works. And when you get to that point, I think you will understand that actually, especially contextual data compounds. And so like for all the startups that we're looking at, we're like, is there a data flywheel where this company just gets smarter and smarter about what it does and develops a competitive advantage that way that persists?
I think I understand the question and I understand the ask, but to me the thing that I find more compelling is like the interoperability of data, because you can have all this data sitting in your little silo for your hotel or for the airline, but it's, it's me as a traveler. I'm a part of American Airlines. I'm a part of Marriott. I'm a part of, the car rental experience, and I'm navigating the airport. And so I'm more interested in the, who's building that interoperability layer that will kind of tap into all of these components, because that's really where I think the greater utility is going to come from. So that's, the data in and of itself is fine, but it has to be useful, and it's not going to be as useful until we have that layer of interoperability that will make it easy to propagate to all the places it needs to get to. And
yeah, I agree with everything they said. The only thing I would add is I think that there's a real opportunity for strategic investment and strategic data access. One of the startups you just heard from is partnered with Alaska, and I bet getting access to their data was quite valuable in getting the startup off the ground. So I certainly think that getting access to data that's otherwise kept as a trade secret is certainly a type of differentiator you can have. And the question is how sustainable and how differentiated the data is.
So what's your biggest turnoff as it comes to an AI-related pitch? What just like you shake your head and just like leave, please?
I mean, obviously, like the endless buzz term. I mean, like that's not just
Yeah,
AI
yeah.
thing. I think that's true for anything. Yeah, I mean, that's the one where they just talk about it like AI just solves the problem, and we use great AI, and then this thing works, and then I take away as nothing about AI.
Yeah.
yeah, it's a tool. It's not a solution.
Absolutely.
And I think too, be more aware of the competition and who else is doing this, because we hear pitches all the time that, oh, we're the first, AI, blah, blah, blah.
You should just never say that.
Yeah.
You just assume you're not the first to do it, and just don't say you're the first ever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to see that you have a unique insight, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the first thing. And I think we were talking earlier, a lot of the folks that have won in prior incarnations of these massive disruptive transformations haven't been the first person to do it. It's been the second or third or eighth. Right, and so just be more aware of that and focus on the unique perspective that you bring, that you understand, not necessarily having to be the first.
Yeah, and just one more thought. We were talking about with Jeanette earlier. It's like you got to sell the steak too. Like we get that if you have AI, you're selling the sizzle, and that's great, and we all like the sizzle. But there has to be actual steak. You have to solve an actual problem that matters to the customer, and then you can bring lots of cool sizzle on top of it. If you just talk about the sizzle, then my assumption is there's no steak.
And Gilad likes steak.
And I like steak.
Any big pet peeves from you?
Just lack of technical depth. I think we're seeing way too many companies where it's kind of like business school type founders that are like, hey, we're just pulling this stuff off the shelf and applying it to some problem. It's like, that's nice, but it's, it's so much better when you actually have a technical co-founder that, brings something more to the table.
All right. Who is going to win the AI war? The AI players, Google, the OTAs, the brands, or the independents?
Is there a war? I didn't realize there was a war
Yeah,
yet.
I'm happy to say that none of us know, and if you think you know, then you're fooling yourself. I think that there's at least 4. I was talking with someone earlier, and they told me that I was wrong because I was missing 5, 6, and 7, because we just don't know what they are yet. But right, we have Google, we have OpenAI, we have startups, we have the chatbots in here. There's a whole bunch of different actions, and I think anyone who says we know consumer behavior is going to look like this in 7 or 10 years is full of what.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know why we call it a war. What is the war?
Well, that's also true. They'll coexist.
Yeah.
I agree with that too.
I mean, I think we are at a point in time where, like, there's Booking and Expedia. I think some of them are here, right? And we are. That's just kind of that was like network level innovation, right? It was because we had the internet, right? They sold all these hotels, and suddenly it turned out that had a network effect. And now we have this thing where kind of like boutique hotels have like 80% of bookings coming from these platforms. Like we have I think a possibility of changing that because we have a compute level innovation, which is fundamentally very different from what we had before. So I think there's a chance to change the way this industry works, like at the infrastructure level. And we're talking a lot about kind of like itineraries and so it's all very nice, but like I really would love to see a way where we make the whole industry kind of like better, right? And its underpinnings. I think there might be a moment where, in 10 years, we might look back on right now and there's a startup in this room or a startup kind of somewhere in the city or, around the world somewhere that actually is kind of rethinking some of the assumptions that we're making about the incumbents. And I include Google in that. Like I think a lot has been written about Google, how is kind of Perplexity is going to eat their cake, and then now it's like, Google's kind of fighting back. I think my core assumption is very variable. Like we're updating kind of what we think about the future every 3 months at the moment because of how fast the progress is. And then it plateaus and then it gets fast again. So I don't think you can really know right now, but I think a safe assumption is a lot of stuff is going to get a lot better than it is today. And if we are looking at AI today and thinking, okay, you're at like the top percentile of human intelligence and ingenuity and creativity, right? Where are we going to be in 12 months? Like it might just be a lot better than it is today in certain aspects, right? And so I don't want to make a big prediction about who's going to win that, but the context of travel is so important. And so I think that we all have a chance of using that specific data we have, if we collect it, if we clean it correctly, if we use it correctly, to really have like amazing businesses that are based on the foundational models.
And I think, too, kind of rethinking the way the question was framed, it sounds like it's pitting these folks against each other from like a distribution perspective, right? So treating it like a zero-sum game, there's one booking to be had, and it's either going to go to, Google or the hotel or the OTA or whatever. And I was thinking of it differently because I'm thinking, they can all win simultaneously, right? Because you can use AI from an operational perspective and reduce the cost of service for your property or reduce your distribution cost or get better at marketing or whatever. So I think there's like room for everybody to win in different areas, right? So I think it has potential to, address different components of the delivery of the experience overall. And nowhere in there does it mention the traveler, right? And I think the traveler is going to be the one that's going to ultimately win in all of this, right? Because it's going to make the experience better, more cost effective.
I'm going to take the flip side of that, though. Like I think a lot of these digital platforms are somewhat parasitic on the industry. Like I'm not sure what they actually add. Who cares? Well, I mean, think about Google. Like, I mean, why do so many kind of like paths start at Google? Like, who cares about, like, I mean, why does that have to be the case? I'm going to Rome. Like, why do I start at Google?
Well, Google in the room, by the way. Anyone here from Google?
I mean, OTAs. Like, why?
Or the OTA,
yeah,
right?
Like, the OTAs. Like, I'm going to Rome. I know where I'm going. I want to stay close to the Vatican. I have 3 hotels that are in my consideration set. You know, I connect my calendar, which incidentally is Google, but the, you know, so you see the problem.
Therein lies the answer.
Right? But it knows my kind of average daily rate. Like it knows what type of hotel I like. It can actually reach out to those properties. There's no need to go via the OTAs. It can actually negotiate. I don't even need to go, sorry, via Virtuoso. I can just go directly to the hotel and be like, hey, Mac's going to stay there, but are you going to give him a perk? Are you going to give him an upgrade, right? Like, this is why, like, I asked the question to Hilton earlier, like, are you building tech against that? So that we can go directly to you and actually, you know, negotiate, like my travel agent used to negotiate circa 1965.
Yeah, I'll just add one, I agree. I'll just add one more thought. Right? The key value of the OTA is that you don't have to go to 37 websites to look at all the hotel websites. But if your AI assistant is willing to go to 37 websites for you, then all of a sudden the value of the OTA goes away. And to Max's point, if all of a sudden there's the commission left, the commission can be used to reducing my price, to give me a benefit, to increasing the margin for the hotel. There's lots of things that can be done with it. And again, the OTA's only value is a place to see all the hotels at once.
Right, but also if I'm loyal to Marriott, I'm not going to the OTA.
That's also
right?
true.
I'm just going directly to Marriott, or I'm
Yeah.
going to, you know, my preferred channel. So I think there's, you know, it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. There's not going to be a single winner. I think there's going to be, you know, multiple channels that will be
And one
made
thing we
more
haven't talked
efficient.
about is I think I'm really bullish on travel clubs. So some people call these AI-first travel agencies. I think there's different ways to think about them. These are not going to be massive. These are not going to be Expedia-like businesses. They're small businesses. But I'm really bullish on travel clubs that really understand a specific audience and can put together complete experiences that are passion-based. And of course, those are not going to go through, well, maybe the first discovery will go through Google or whatever, but people will become members of these clubs, and then you'll have a direct relationship with them.
Like AARP.
Like AARP, which is a
AAA.
much bigger travel company than I ever
Costco,
realized.
yeah.
Like Costco, exactly
Yeah.
right.
All right, reminder, get your apps out, ask your questions to Gilad, Cara, and Max. Okay. Do you think the term AI helps or hurts innovation? A lot of what is exciting is generative AI, but the term gets used as a catch-all for lots of use cases.
So there's three categories of AI, and we need to think about them separately. There's AI, the set of tools. That includes Gen AI, computer vision, collaborative filtering, lots and lots of other stuff. We have AGI. These are agents that are coming soon. We define AGI as an agent that can perform at an average level of a human, educated human adult. And then we have artificial superintelligence, which some people predict 2045. Who actually knows if and when we get there? The prediction for ASI is that it's a bot or an agent that's better at basically everything than basically all of us. And I think we have to think about these three things separately. So I imagine part of the question is, when we say AI, we forget about computer vision, which I think in our industry, we way underutilize computer vision, the tool. So I think there's a couple different ways to think about this. And AI is a misleading term, which is why I think a lot of us are trying to now define AGI or agentic AI as separate from AI, the set of tools. And we don't really need to think about ASI now, but I'm sure you're reading about it in the news or whatever. I think it's important to separate those.
I'd like to talk about ASI.
We can talk about ASI.
Please.
So how do you see the future for travel after 2045, given
And I'll
that?
say if we get there, right? I mean, we were talking about this earlier, right? If Sam Altman was here,
Yeah.
he would tell us there's only two bets you can make. One is that the AI is going to basically as good as it's going to get for a while, and the other is going to continue to exponentially get better like we've seen in the last few years. And certainly if you buy the latter, then we're going to see this incredible knowledge explosion happen. And I have no clue. Like, I have no clue how it's going to change the travel industry. I mean, because it's literally going to, if what we are imagining actually comes up, it's going to have these capabilities that don't exist on planet Earth today.
Right.
We don't have anything that is expertise at a wide, like what we all know, the more expertise you have, the narrower your area of expertise gets. If we have ASI, that's no longer going to be the case, and I have no clue how it's going to change travel.
I mean, the end game just seems to be like the complete annihilation of the human race.
Well, I sure hope
Our
not.
conversation earlier.
Yeah, we can take that over drinks, but
I mean,
But why?
But really,
Okay. Well, I mean, I think there's a scenario where there is no alignment, right, with human objectives. I think a lot of very smart people are working very hard to prevent that. I think there will be, well, Yeah, but it's like nuclear energy, right? Like there's certainly, there are a lot of benefits, but
Well, I'm not sure if it's like nuclear energy, though, because of course the nuclear bomb could not choose to detonate itself or where to go, where the ASI will be able to choose where to go on its own.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, there are just risks inherent in the technology, right? And one of the risks is that actually it isn't very smart, but it is still quite powerful, and it's going to do things that are bad. But honestly, I think it's like I think the more likely scenario, which scares me quite a bit more, is that it's going to get extremely good at giving us what we want and keeping people in like a slightly catatonic state, like fentanyl for your brain, and no one's going to leave their, I mean, already people are like not going outside, right, because they're on their devices. And that's not good for travel as an industry or like the human race, right? Like, because people aren't going to meet and have babies. And
well, like we talked about, the fear is Wall-E, right? The fear is that we all become lazy assholes in floating chairs playing video games. That's a real fear. And the other fear that I think is even closer is that humans have only lived in a world dominated by human ideas. Every idea you've ever heard is a human idea. And we're soon going to live in a world with ideas not created by humans. And I have no idea if it's going to be amazing, we'll solve all the diseases, or we all become dopamine addicts in our chairs. But we are going to live in a world soon with ideas generated by non-humans.
Oh, I can't wait for the cocktail hour. What time is it?
I think there's
I'm not so worried about that. I think people, humanity has always like sought to explore what's over the horizon. I don't think that's going to go anytime soon.
All right, let's get our last question here. Which one should it be?
let us
There's a lot
what
of
about
good
our own
ones in
stuff?
here.
Go ahead.
So what's been your most exciting investment? I'm not even going to skip over the past year. I'm just going to say, like, we did Fora here 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago in New York. I think kind of building the AI-enabled travel advisor, kind of like the human interface to the end traveler, but like with all the tools, right, that can get you to book amazing trips. I think it's just a wonderful thing to work on. And like, if not all of you are Fora advisors, it's cheap and easy to become a travel advisor.
I'll take that third one. Are there any AI companies in travel that excite you within or not within your portfolios? Quick answer to that. I'm really interested in like visual AI and voice AI, and there's some fascinating companies, particularly in like the aviation and airport sector, that are doing some very cool things with like understanding everything that's going on in an operation by scanning camera feeds from airports and then connecting all of those workflows. So similar in some ways to some of the things that we saw earlier, but that has potential to dramatically improve the journey experience and making it more seamless for all of us.
All right, pick your poison.
Yeah, I'll take the second from bottom. So I asked if I've used AI to make an investment decision. The answer is no to that specifically, but I use AI for I use deep research, which is of course a tool within AI, to help me understand the market. I always tell founders that if I know the market better than you, I'm not going to invest because you're supposed to be the expert on the market. So I use that a lot to try and understand who else is out there, how they're talking about their product, et cetera. I'll say one other thing I am excited about. It's not my portfolio because it doesn't exist yet, but we talk about dynamic products. Can you use AI to generate an entire new type of product to sell a customer? Not a new way of selling, but a new thing, the new what you sell. And I think there are opportunities to use AI and lots of other things to do that, which I think can create a true win-win-win, better travel experiences, more margin for the seller, and less over-tourism in places that have a lot of over-tourism.
May I actually ask, like,
please?
Yeah, so one of the things I really want, and we're investors in Get Your Guide. We invested there 12 years ago, so it's in-destination tours and activities, particularly walking tours. I really want someone to build like a dynamic walking tour. When I'm walking through New York, just point it like, this is the building, and it was built by such and such, and it actually houses
and it learns about you, and knows that you love architecture, or that my daughter loves princesses, and it talks about whatever the hell happened in New York.
Wouldn't that be amazing? Like, just like making, because the world is amazing, and we know this because we're in travel, and so. Like,
and even further, I think the idea of taking the hotel concierge and stick it in your pocket, so I can book things, so I can get recommendations, so I get advice in real time, and then your brand is supporting me throughout every step of my trip, that seems like a no-brainer.
All right. This is awesome. Cara, Max, Gilad, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.